Hey everybody, it's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Once again, thanks for joining us today. I wanted to jump into a comment I got from Austin about the UN Security Council. And in a comment, he talked about the possibility of making the UN Security Council based around a new order of things, a situation where you can have representative from each continent to give a more diversity to the UN Security Council. So, for those that don't know, the UN organization, the major global organization in the world, its charter primarily is centered around international peace and security. Um, I always thought that the UN was basically made to create a more harmonious world. And it is in some regards, but its basic undertones revolve around international peace and security. From a diplomatic point of view, these are defense words, these are military words. This is around muscle and engagement around a global consensus. And that muscle and engagement around global consensus is built around the core of the 15-member UN Security Council. And it really is just five because there's five permanent members on the UN Security Council, the UN Security Council, as well as 10 temporary or rotational members around the UN Security Council that switch out every 1 or 2 years. So the five permanent members are going to be the victors of World War II, pretty much. The major powers that were the victors of World War II: United States, France, United Kingdom, Russia, and China. Now, not only do these countries all have the same common motive of being the victors of World War II, but they're also all nuclear power. Some would call this grouping to be the five most powerful countries in the world from a military point of view. And the UN Security Council, pretty much what makes them so great, especially these five permanent members, is their ability to veto, the single vote veto. So if there is a issue going around in the world, these countries come together, they vote on resolutions, and guess what? If one country vetoes the issue, the resolution is stopped dead in its tracks. Now, this is a very powerful thing, and it would not something that can be easily given away, because why would they want it? What we have now in the UN Security Council is we have members, we have a Western bloc with US, UK, and France, which kind of usually side with each other. And then you have Russia and China out there, depending on the issue, will support and back each other because of their common interests at this time. But this veto power is extremely powerful, and especially as we go into what we will call a multipolar world, as this Security Council makeup is built around a 20th century model of power. And we're going into this, we're in the 21st century and we're dealing with this multipolar world. How do we accommodate that for that, especially considering the demographic trends that's going on in the world today? I wanted to revisit this question because I think geopolitics is so important. And the reason why is because it provides a strong foundation in reality. It talks about and cites precedents of history and of capacity. And this is why it's so important to me because it's ultimately a representation of reality in real time. And you're able to get an insight in how some of the most intelligent, wealthy, and powerful people and organizations operate on a grand level. I'll put this to an anecdotal situation. When I was younger, I joined the military. And I joined the military and I served overseas in Japan. So I joined the US Navy and I served in Japan. And when I went to Japan, I was very young, 18, 19 years old, fresh out of school. And I went out over there. And I remember it was like my first weekend there. I got there on a Thursday or something, like maybe like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. But basically, I got there that week, and all of the guys were welcoming the new guys coming to the fleet. And it was like, we're going to go out, we're going to have a great time. Japan's awesome. And I remember that weekend we went out, and man, I had one of the most fun times of my life just because of the novelty of it all. So in the States, you got to be 21 or older to go out, have a good time. But overseas in a lot of countries, the age is a lot younger. So I believe at the time Japan was 18. So we got to go to all the clubs, hang out, all the cool, nice spots, etc. It was a blast. So I couldn't believe it. I said, "This is amazing. The next 4 years of my life is going to be consumed with one being in the military, which I thought was going to be a great character development opportunity for me." But just the freedom and the fun that went along with it, being in overseas in a foreign country, being exposed to different cultures, and enjoying life. So when I was there in the military, so we went out. I came back. It was so much fun. I slept in like the entire Saturday. Like we went out on a Saturday. I slept in. I think that entire Sunday. Like that's how much fun I had out, and I was so drained. So and I'm still a rookie at this point. But when I went overseas, something else was occurring concurrently. A couple of the military people, because there are military bases at various parts. There's an Air Force base in Japan. There was a Marine base in Japan. But there have been infractions, criminal infractions by some of the military members. And this was unacceptable. And what ended up happening was over that week I went there, things had gotten out of control, and a couple service people had did some egregious behavior, and the, the military was fed up, and they said no more. And basically, what they did, they pretty much put a restriction on the entire military personnel. A lot of things happened. We ended up losing the captain of the ship. He ended up getting replaced by a disciplinarian, a guy to come in to, in particular, crack the whip and make sure that things were run in a very disciplined way over there, because things had just gotten out of hand. So what occurred after I went out that Saturday and enjoyed my day that Sunday, resting and recovering, is that Monday the intercom came on from our leadership saying that there was going to be an imposed curfew. And I just realized at that point, and this is the word that they use in the military, the word liberty, that I had pretty much given my liberty to the U.S. military for the next for the full term of my time in the military, that the 4 years that I was going to be enlisted there. I had outsourced this. And the reason why I bring this up is because when you talk about the UN Security Council, I want to make it blatantly clear, and I want to establish this life lesson that geopolitics provides insight into. Nobody can take something from you that's truly yours. And what I realized then at that point is I had outsourced my liberty. So as long as I was going to be a military personnel, I was always going to be subject to military dictations upon my liberty. It came with the bag. And this was a reality I would have to reconcile with during my time there. And understanding this, saying, who does my liberty belong to at the end of the day? Or who do I want it to belong to? Who am I comfortable with it belong to? I spent the next couple of years there on a military curfew. So here I I felt an adult, able to go out join the military, but I also had to be back at 12 o'clock at night. And this was an important life lesson. So when you go to the UN Security Council, I think there is a lot of great potential candidates out there. Top of my mind of the list will be countries like Brazil. Brazil is massive. It's the southern colossus, occupies 50% of the South American continent, 50% of the population. It is almost synonymous with South America, even though South America is a big, diverse place. But Brazil is massive. How can this country not be in contention? Nigeria, another big, massive country, not so much geographically as opposed to demographically. It is over 200 million people, and it is rising. Over the next century, Nigerian population will outpace that of the United States. So when you look at West Africa and the neighbors around it, Nigeria is the elephant in the room. And some would say all of sub-Saharan Africa. You have primarily Nigeria and the Congo. And Ethiopia is to the east, depending if you consider this sub-Saharan or not. But Ethiopia is a demographic giant on the African continent. But Nigeria is a beast. Another candidate would be, and I think this would probably be the most likely candidate, would be India, which occupies uh, nearly three-quarters of the South Asian subcontinent. India has 1.4 billion people, on pace to be the largest country in the world, most populous country in the world, excuse me. And it's highly pivotal. It's highly important to the world, the way the world works today, with its tech sector, with its demographic, with its location. It's the world's largest democracy. It's a Hindu nation, so it will give diversity of religion to the UN Security Council. It's a nuclear power. So I think India has a lot going for it. And if it was to be a new member, I think India would have a very strong argument. Other countries would be Pakistan and Indonesia. I just don't think, I think Pakistan always have an issue because it's next to India. And it from a metrics point of view, India is such a massive country, but Pakistan is on its way to being the most populous Islamic country in the world, another nuclear power. So I think Pakistan will have that talking point. And you also have Indonesia. Indonesia is currently the world's most populous Muslim country, archipelago of islands spread out as far as continental U.S. So it's massive, full of plenty of people. Islamic country, which would add diversity once again to the UN Security Council, which doesn't currently have that voice at the moment. So if I was to talk about countries that I think would be potential candidates, it would be Brazil, Nigeria, Pakistan, India, Indonesia. They'll come to the top of my mind just based off the people. I would want a country from the tropics for that diversity play, and just the different religions that you can possess, where you have other Islamic countries such as Nigeria, Pakistan, Indonesia, or a Hindu country such as India, or just an anchoring country such as Brazil, which takes up so much room. Now, the issue with nearly all these countries is none of them are vital to the world order. And when I say none of them are vital to the world order, is they are most likely team players or just have major trade relations amongst neighboring countries. And you can make the exception for India. But what the real point is that these countries are not shifting the global paradigm at the current state. For example, what America did, if you remember in World War One, America kind of went in begrudgingly and went in a little bit late, and then it just crossed over the line with the sinking of Lusitania. And then it shrink back into its isolationist mentality. And this was saw with the organization of the League of Nations. America wasn't happy with the makeup of the League of Nations, and it didn't join. And a lot of people consider this one of the major shortcomings of the League of Nations and why it failed, and why the UN would succeed, because it included the United States. But what had happened at this point is America had become a great global power, economically and demographically and politically. If you remember Teddy Roosevelt and then the Great White Fleet, America opened up Japan. America did a lot of work to try to keep one China when the Europeans wanted to slice, the Europeans and the Japanese wanted to slice and dice it amongst various realms of control. So America had already made its presence felt, regardless of what the rest of the countries thought. America had occupied space in the room that nobody could take away from. And I think that's what it's going to take to get on the UN Security Council. It's going to have to be a country that nobody can deny. You can't take it away from that country. They have to take up so much room in a space that the UN Security Council countries are going to want trade with them. They're going to want relations with them. They're going to want military contracts with them and defense contracts. And their voice is going to matter. If you go back to the Suez Canal crisis, I always think about the Suez crisis where you had UK, France, and Israel trying to bully Egypt. Egypt wanted to nationalize the Suez Canal, and they stepped in. They wanted to invade and take over, and America put the kibosh to it. So what I'm saying is, even though America was an isolationist country and it wasn't trying to be the most globally engaged country, it had to be. The vacuum of power was so strong that it brought America in. And I think that's where we're at with the UN Security Council. So the question is, which country is going to be added? These countries in the UN Security Council, these five powers are not going to want to concede power. That vote is so powerful. And if they bring in another country, they're just going to bring in a country that's going to co-sign what they want. But since there is no unanimity amongst these members, that means that if you bring on a new member, it's going to be in contradiction to the other member. I was looking at the votes of the UN Security Council, and you can see with the flow of power, you can see the voting record. So countries such as uh, France and United Kingdom, their vetoes occurred primarily in mid 20th century. And you see countries like China, even though the UN Security Council was established after World War II, they really didn't step up using their veto usage until after the 1990s. So US and Russia, the former Soviet Union, they are the major vetoing countries, but that's because they've been the most relevant and they have the most interest up to date. America would bring aboard UK and France, which kind of falls under their umbrella. And then Russia making their plays, trying to advance in the world, but also stepping in the way of some things America does that it doesn't like. So you see a country like China now, as China's becoming more powerful, it's asserting its interest. It's developing a network of allies and interests, and it's going to use that veto power to protect their allies and interests. So what this goes back to say at the end of the day is you have countries out there viable, but this is the world does not work on a charitable basis. The world works on an interest basis, especially when it comes to power and who runs the order of your nation. So these countries that are on the current UN Security Council, they're in no rush to bring aboard anybody that's going to be basically dilute their voting power. And if they bring on somebody, that country is going to have to be so big, just like the United States was so big in comparison to France and UK when they had to work to bring them into the UN Security Council. That power is going to be so big that they'll probably be second seed to that country anyway, or parity, which one will hope, right? Because that country is going to arrive because that country has earned it and nobody can deny it. So the question is, will the UN Security Council look to bring on more members? And I'm saying when these second tier countries, when these big players get their act right, when they start making the moves and building up the vacuum of power and the gravity to them where the world needs them, the UN Security Council, it doesn't even matter what they say. They won't have a choice but to have this country on. The UN Security Council would pretty much be vapid without that country on board. So that's our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comment below. Please like, share, subscribe if you like the content. And if I missed any countries out there that you think would be great UN candidates, let us know. Look forward to hearing from you. So take care, and until next time, Bantu up.